Episode 29. Why is that woman still here? Bryce scoffed. So I'm to blame for stealing your resources. Stop making excuses for your own incompetence. The Claire Group has never kept people who can't do their jobs. You know that better than I do. Without even bothering to look at the document again, he threw it in the trash in disgust. Howard Claire had only ended up managing Star Entertainment because Bryce had allowed it to happen, but now his intentions were very clear. Howard was shocked and quickly said, "Bryce, trust me. Give me a bit more time, and I will make the company prosper." Bryce laughed. "Ha, you. It will be a miracle if you can keep it from losing money." Hearing a bit of leeway in these words, Howard struck while the iron was hot. "Don't worry, I know what I need to do. I will work hard this time. Star Entertainment isn't just your baby, it's mine too." Bryce thought back to his original intention of establishing the company. He finally said, "All right, I'll give you 3 months to save the company for me. If you can't do it within that time, don't bother coming to see me again. You will resign from the Claire Group immediately." Howard saw that the situation had turned out better than he expected. Even though he wasn't happy with Bryce's attitude toward him, he didn't dare to show it. He could only nod in agreement. Bryce waved his hand as a sign for Howard to leave. He pinched the center of his brows in annoyance. The man really was a handful. After thinking for a while, he called in his assistant. "Arrange someone reliable to take charge of operations and management for Star Entertainment. They will take orders from me only, and they don't need to worry about my family. Also, organize the existing employee lists. If there's anyone who can work but is doing nothing and still getting a paycheck, fire them." The assistant quickly did as he was told. This time, he knew the CEO was furious. The Claire Group was a business empire single-handedly built by Bryce himself. Relationships between relatives within the company were always complicated and inconvenient to manage. But no matter how incompetent Howard was, he was still a member of the family. If Bryce were to make things too difficult for him, he would definitely be criticized in the future. This is what he was worried about. Half an hour later, the assistant walked in with the personnel list from Star Entertainment. At that moment, Bryce was dealing with other important matters and did not want to pay attention to these trivial matters. "Can you please handle this yourself? I have other important stuff to take care of." The assistant nodded. After hesitating for a moment, he took out a resume and handed it to Bryce. "Mr. Claire, there is a situation here. Maybe you should decide whether or not you want to keep her." With that, he sat down Natalie's resume in front of him. Bryce was surprised. He hadn't expected to see that woman's resume on his desk. More importantly, hadn't she said she was leaving the country? Why was she still here? "This woman was just hired today. She has a wealth of experience in managerial work, and her resume looks promising. Now the company is going to be restructured. Do you want to keep her?" Bryce frowned. Suddenly, he felt a bit confused. The image of Liam and this woman appeared in his head once again. She had clearly said that she would be leaving the country, but now she was seeking employment here. How truthful were her words? He squinted. Suddenly, he felt annoyed by her. He couldn't understand why he was having such a strange feeling. The assistant saw his blank expression and said, "Mr. Claire?" After sorting out his thoughts, Bryce pondered for a moment and finally said, "If you think she can do the job, let her stay. If not, don't bother with her." When the assistant heard this, he made an executive decision. He left the room without saying anything else. At the very same moment, Bryce thought about the mother and son. He hadn't thought too much about them over the past few days, but lately, he didn't know why, the image of them would occasionally appear in his mind. When he saw a child on the street, he would think of the little fellow who had hugged his leg and called him Daddy. He wondered how they were doing. Suddenly, he felt like he was losing his mind. Why was he thinking about them so much? They were strangers. Whether she was abroad or still in the country, it didn't mean anything to him. After Natalie received Star Entertainment's offer and got the job, she was quite happy. She decided to take Liam out to eat that night to celebrate. He had just returned to his home country and was very curious about many things. He chose the restaurant himself. Despite his young age, he had had his own special taste. She always thought every time she saw his grown-up attitude and natural authority that his personality was not like hers at all. Did she take after his father? She drifted off for a moment thinking about this. Although that night 5 years ago was a blur, the pain she had suffered could never be erased. She was still depressed. Her appetite had also decreased a lot. She put down her fork, and out of the corner of her eye saw two familiar figures enter the restaurant. Cheryl and Nick walked in, arm in arm. They looked like a loving couple. She frowned. Their arrival had ruined her mood. She didn't want to be noticed by them. She was about to take Liam and leave, but Cheryl seemed to have spotted her. They walked over to Natalie, still arm in arm. "Sis, what a coincidence to see you here. Have you thought about what I said earlier?" She smiled sweetly, and her gentle appearance gave other people the impression that she was happy to see her sister. Natalie sneered. She knew that Cheryl was only putting on an act in front of Nick and couldn't care less about them. She responded with 2 words, "Get lost." Cheryl was slightly stunned, but she wasn't angry with her sister. However, a hint of disgust flashed across Nick's eyes. As he was about to walk away with Cheryl, he heard her say, "I got to know that you've got a new job. I wanted to congratulate you, but now I feel wronged." She leaned against Nick's arm while secretly watching Natalie's face. Seeing that she hadn't wounded Natalie enough, she said, "I don't know how much longer you can keep your job. You might get fired in a few days." As soon as Natalie heard this, her calm expression changed a bit. She glared at them hatefully. They disgusted her.
Full story is available at novelpalace.com. Click the link in the comment section to get it free.